So tell me, why do you think you deserve this job? Well, I'm Donald freaking Kelly. Hey everyone, welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and as you heard in the teaser, we're going to spend some time today sharing some insights on how you can prepare for that ultimate sales job. But before we go into that, I want to tell you thank you so much. I've been doing a lot of, I believe very strongly in the personal connection and the personal email, the personal tweets, or connecting with your audience. And I really appreciate those who have been tweeting us and connecting with us on Twitter and also on our Facebook page. And for leaving the reviews on iTunes, I really appreciate those. And for just sending the emails. I love learning about the different things you're working on and the different challenges you're facing, and to offer my suggestion. And if it works great. And if not, then we plan and I get some experts who can share their insights. But I really appreciate it. And one of the things that I get often is how can I prepare for a sales interview? And I want to share some of the insights, things that I've done, and things that I've learned from experts that you can apply and to see if they'll help you. So the process of landing that job or going in for that interview and being really prepared, it starts way back. And if possible, I want to go even further back before the actual interview. I would say all the way to the actual hunting for a job. And I personally think that there are two ways. You can work the hard way or the smart way. Now, the hard way would be to go into this to go and apply for this job totally cold, which oftentimes does not lead to where you want to get. But is there a way that you can become friends or know someone within that organization? And this is where the power of LinkedIn comes in. So tremendous. I would go and search for that company, and I would go around and look and see if there's anyone that I know within that organization, or if there are any mutual friends that I have with someone within that organization that I can get an introduction with. And the cool part about this now is that you're getting insider information. You're getting information from people who are working in the company. And it'd be great if you can get information from someone who's in that sector or in that department or in that role that you are looking to get into. But if you don't know anyone in that company, there's still hope that you can gain a relationship with someone and get a better understanding before you can apply. So I will talk about that in a few more minutes. But one of the other, so let's say you did get the interview, you do have this interview set up and you're going into the company. The important thing that you need to do is research that company. I would set up Google Alerts. And if you don't know how to set up Google Alerts, just Google it. But Google Alerts allow you to get information on whatever you want. If it's Madonna or sports or New York Stock Exchange or whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Or, Apple. Every time something comes out, whether in the news or some kind of press release or anything related to that organization, you would get an email from Google. You could set it up if you want daily or every hour, whatever you want, you could set that up. And I set that up for different things, and especially things related to myself. If there are press releases going out about our organization or about me or about some of my clients or whatever it might be, it's important for me to learn that. So Google kind of does the homework for me. They do the hard work and go out and fish and find everything and bring it to me daily. And I can use that information. So if you're going to apply for a company, say it's Johnson & Johnson, it would be pretty interesting for me to know if Johnson & Johnson, how they're doing on their earnings or whatever they're doing, if they have a new division that they're opening up. Have they had management changes, or are they, what are some of the things that they're doing related to their competitors? What are new products or whatever it might be? It would be it's important for you to learn as much as you can about that organization. And that's one of the great ways you can do so. You can also go to their website, and their website will teach you a lot about what they're doing, maybe goals that they have, or maybe just the fact that they did something in the community really neat recently. I would also like to find out, how do they make money? And what I mean by that is, obviously you might know, Johnson & Johnson, they create products for whatever it might be. But really, how do they make their money? And if the more you can understand about that process, the better off you'll be. As a sales representative, you really need to understand your role as well. So research as much as you can about that role and find out how can your role help the organization to make money? And say you're not in sales. If you're working as in product development, or if you're working in customer service, if you're working in, I don't know, I can't really think of an area, HR, you need to understand your particular role and understand what's the company's objective, company's overall goals, and how your role can help them to accomplish that goal. I hope that makes sense. So now, what I mentioned earlier, let's pretend that you don't know anyone in the organization. How can you gain an access to someone in the organization? You did your research and you don't have anyone that can give you an introduction to someone, which I don't believe that. I'm sure you have someone that you can connect with. But let's say you don't. The best way to get some information really quick is to become friends with someone in an organization. And I feel one of the easiest individuals you can become friends with, and this is unconventional, people don't really do this a lot, but call a salesperson for that company. Salespeople love to talk to other individuals. So again, Johnson & Johnson or whoever it might be, you just look it up and see who are sales representative for that organization. Become friends with them on LinkedIn and ask them a question, make that introduction. Or, if it's possible to get an interview with them, they're not going to hire you for the job, but, just interview them, learn about the company, connect with them and ask them some of those challenging questions. What are some of the major challenges facing the organization? What do you like about the job? What don't you like? And you might ask them how as you in your role, how do you help the organization to make money, or just it's a great way to get that detail understanding that you probably could not get from the Google research or whatever it might be. But utilize those salespeople. Salespeople like to talk, so go out there and connect with them and get information from them, because I'm sure you can glean a lot on how you can prepare for the interview as well, from an insider who's already in the organization. Another important part is also your resume. So let's say you do know someone in the organization because you reach out to a sales representative and you understand the company's objectives, the company's goals, and what they look for in a candidate. Now you need to prepare your resume that focuses and tailor towards that. Now, something I learned from a great friend of mine who was working for a big Fortune 100 company, and one of the things that he mentioned when I was fresh out of college, preparing for an interview, and by the way, I was interviewing with the company that he was in, so I went to a company that I knew someone, and it was made the process a lot easier. But he told me all these details about the organization and some of the things that I need to do and some of the things I need to prepare for and how the interviews are and so forth and blah, blah, blah. Then what I did, though, with my resume, he said, prepare your resume in a way that it tells a story. Have the bullet points become something that is catchy and that it actually, if possible, if you do have numbers that you can apply it. Like, say, for instance, increase my sales pipeline by 47% through XYZ. Utilizing channel partners or whatever you have done. I mean, it's just important for you to kind of utilize that opportunity to highlight yourself, and you can't be bashful here, and you must do it in a way that it just cohesively makes sense to whoever's reading it, that they can see almost like a cause and effect, a storytelling process, or just bite-sized information that just grabs them. And that's what I did with my resume. And if you need further information, you go ahead and send me an email and I can share some more of that with you. But it's important, though, to make it so that it's very, very easy to read. And again, I tailored my resume at that time towards the organization's goal and the goal of that specific job criteria. And as you look on their website, when they tell you more about that job, you can tailor your resume again towards that. Are there particular words that they're using? Or the particular description that they're talking about a particular individual? You need to tailor your resume that you become that individual as well. So those are some of the things that I did. So now when my resume was in front of them, plus the fact that I had someone in the organization who gave me insight, it made it a little bit easier in the process. Now, you actually get there. Well, before you do that, you need to find out who's going to do the interview as much as possible. Sometimes they send you an email, or sometimes they might tell you individuals that are going to be a part of the interview process, or your insider in the organization can tell you who's going to be a part of that interview process. So now you can look on LinkedIn and connect with them, or you can research them online and get information about them. A cool tool I'm going to tell you about. I don't tell a lot of people about this, but it's a really cool app, and it's called the Refresh app. And the Refresh app, you can find it. I have an iPhone, and it's in the Apple Store, and I believe it's on the the Google Market as well. But the Refresh app is really, really cool, and a friend introduced me to this. But Refresh essentially goes out and pulls information on individuals throughout using their social media. So say, for instance, if you were going in for a job, more than likely, most organizations are going to go out and look up information on you. They're going to research you, look at your Facebook. They're going to look at your LinkedIn. They're going to look at your Twitter. Well, put the ball back in your court as well, and you can get information that helps you to have meaningful conversation, because I think that's very, very important. So you might say, for instance, on Friday, you have this interview and John is one of the individuals. Well, what the Refresh app does, it pulls everything from John's social media, specifically like LinkedIn or Twitter or maybe Facebook or wherever it might be, and see some of the things that John does or some of the things that he posts. But the caveat to that is that you need to have some kind of connection. So especially with your LinkedIn connection or your Twitter connection with them, it kind of helps you to get more information. But the Refresh app is really, really powerful in that sense. And you might see that John posts a lot about baseball on Twitter. Well, it may be important then to, in your interview, prior to starting the interview, maybe talk about baseball in some way. Try to incorporate that. But that's the power of that tool. Refresh just goes out and pulls all the information for you in one area, as opposed to you going around online and doing all of this digging and trying to find that. When it comes down to it, people are going to buy from those who they know, like, and trust. People are going to hire those in the same instance. Those they know, like, and trust and believe can accomplish their objectives, and their objectives are the ones they're trying to do in the company, or particularly for that role. So it's important, again, to know information and to do your research. And the more you can understand, the more you can prepare, the more confident you'll be in that role as you go and apply for that particular position. And then the last part I would say is be human. Again, with the information that you have, you know that John likes baseball, and if you like baseball, great. And if you don't like baseball, maybe you start to learn to like baseball, or whatever you can do to have a conversation and ask questions. You've done research about the company now, especially in an interview. I can't tell you how many times people have told me, well, I didn't ask any questions at the interview. Well, of course you're not going to get the job. I mean, they're going to look for someone who's intuitive or who wants to learn. And, to go in there prepared, maybe again, from the research you did from the Google Analytics, maybe find out that a company is doing some major improvements. Maybe they just hired a new CEO, or, ask them how is that affecting your department. Or the other part too is to go to the competitor's site. Again, think the opposite of what most people do. Go to the competitor's site and look at what the competitors are doing, and maybe you can share and get information from them. I noticed that company B is doing this, and they're expanding into South America. Are there any goals in the future to expand company A that I'm interviewing for into South America? What are the strategies to do so? Maybe you find out more information through that, or maybe you find out that they created a new product, the competitor, and they're getting more market share. You can ask some of that questions to company A you're interviewing for. What are some of the strategies utilizing to help to position ourselves in the marketplace? So I hope that kind of helps. Actually, P.S., the last thing I wanted to talk about is the confidence. You go into that room and you dress for success. Prepare. If you're a gentleman, make sure your shoes are shined. All the details. If you're a lady, make sure that you just look impressive, and make sure. I had an episode with Linda Yates early on when the podcast first started, and she shared a little bit more about dressing for success, on how you can dress and feel confident in your dress, and not your dress as long dress, but in the way you look. So go back and look for that episode. It's Linda Yates, and it's about dressing for success. And she can give you some great tips in that interview. It was really awesome on how you can dress for success and be confident. But you need to look great when you go into that interview, and you need to sit confidently, and you need to position yourself in a way that you're respectful, and that I personally like, if they put me in a room, when they come in, stand up and wait for them to be seated, and wait for them to tell you to be seated, and just be confident. And when you do the interview, again, be human, pretend you're talking to someone that you know, and be very confident. And when you answer those questions, share those things, and that you believe that you are a great person for that job. And at the teaser, you heard me say, I'm Donald freaking Kelly. Well, that's essentially what I told one of the CEOs of a company that I was interviewing with. He asked me why I believe I was good for that job. And again, I was fresh out of college. I was young, and he